Mother Teresa was known around the world for her amazing work among the destitute and dying on the streets of Calcutta. But when she was asked what motivated her to do this difficult work, she said it was her love for Jesus. Before she and her sisters would go out on the street, they gathered in worship and prayer to seek the face of Jesus, to be strengthened by his love. There is a line in Israel's Psalm 69 that describes Mother Teresa and a long line of people like her. Passion for your house consumes me. It wasn't the needs of the poor around her that consumed Teresa. She was consumed by her passionate love for God in the face of Jesus Christ. Psalm 69 is quoted 10 times in the New Testament. Early Christian writers saw deep connections between the hostility and agonies of that ancient psalm and the experience of Jesus, especially during his final week. At one point in Jesus' ministry, he was so infuriated by the commercialization of the temple in Jerusalem that he overturned the tables of money changers, trashed the sales counter for pigeons and doves, and roared that this was God's house, a place of prayer for all nations, not a marketplace. The temple guardians were furious, and the disciples thought about that line in Psalm 69 about how passion for God's house can get you into trouble with the powers that be. To be sure, the resistance movement against Jesus mounted with malice and slander, echoing the experience of the psalmist who said in verse 4, "They hated me without reason." Someone with the hide of a rhinoceros would just shake off this opposition, but Jesus felt the sting of their hate. The psalmist says, "God, you know how I am scorned, disgraced, and shamed. Come and rescue me from my foes." Obedience can be lonely, but Jesus was so devoted to his Father's mission of saving the world that he pressed on. His disciples barely understood. Psalm 69 says, "I looked in vain for one friendly face." Not one. I couldn't find one shoulder to cry on. The disciples swore up and down that Jesus could count on them, but in the end they all deserted him and fled. As the ring of evil tightened around him, Jesus went to the woods to pray. He became anguished and distressed and said to his disciples, "My soul is crushed with grief to the point of death. Stay here and keep watch with me." Once again, I'm struck by the similarity between Jesus and the poetic words of Psalm 69. "Save me, O God, for the floodwaters are up to my neck. Deeper and deeper I sink into the mire. I can't find a foothold. I am in deep waters, and the floods are overwhelming me." Have you ever felt like that? Overwhelmed and about to go under? I'm glad the Bible is honest about the sufferings of Jesus. He was not Teflon coated. His passion for God and his compassion for us led him to wade deep into the mud and quicksand of our brokenness. He endured the suffocating weight of our sin on his shoulders so we would never find ourselves alone. In the story of Pilgrim's Progress, the hero, named Christian, nears the end of his hazardous life journey. As he crosses the final river, he loses his footing. His friend Hopeful can feel the ground solid beneath him and tries to cheer him on, but Christian flounders. He is overwhelmed by his doubts and fears and almost drowns. And then, finally, he recalls God's promise. "When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And when you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you." Christian regains his footing and crosses with his friend successfully over to the other side. That story and the words of Psalm 69 remind us in our most desperate moments that Jesus Christ is no stranger to this overwhelming. He too was engulfed, but he has crossed our river and holds out his hand to us. Whatever overwhelms you these days, the powerful voice of Jesus rings out to us even from the darkness of this Holy Week. You are not alone. When you pass through the waters, I will be with you. May his voice and his presence reassure you today. Take care.